Imagine you're walking into a brightly lit room.
Okay.
You look over to the corner, and sitting right there, side by side on one of those really soft, those primary colored playmats.
Oh, yeah, the foam ones?
Exactly. There are two babies. They are inches apart, occupying the exact same physical space in the universe, breathing the same air under the same fluorescent lights.
Right.
But when you look closely at what they are actually experiencing, the scene becomes, well, almost comical.
How so?
Because baby A is just wailing. I mean, red in the face, fists clenched, experiencing absolute pure distress.
Oh, totally dysregulated.
Yeah. But meanwhile, right next to them, baby B is cackling, just throwing their head back with absolutely unadulterated glee.
It's a funny image.
It really is. To an adult observer walking into that room, the visual is just completely absurd.
Well, yeah, because the human brain immediately tries to force a narrative onto that contradiction, right?
Right. We want it to make sense.
Exactly. You walk in, and your initial instinct is to assume a social dynamic that simply isn't there. You assume the laughing baby is somehow finding humor in the other baby's misery.
Like they're mocking them.
Right. Or you wonder why the crying baby is so oblivious to the generally pleasant, safe environment of the room. We impose an adult understanding of shared space onto a situation that's governed by entirely different biological rules.
We project a whole complex social drama onto a piece of foam.
We really do.
But what we are going to do today is look at our source material and pull apart why this scenario is not a contradiction at all. We're using this nursery scene for our deep dive today to understand human biology, the mechanics of perception, and fundamentally, how we construct reality itself.
It's a huge topic.
It is. Those two babies are actually giving us a masterclass in the human condition. Okay, let's unpack this, because the sources suggest we have to completely abandon our adult assumptions, and start with the physical body to understand the profound divergence happening on that playmat.
Yeah, the foundational thesis from the text is that we're looking at a divergence of internal state, of neurological development, and of perception,
All at the same time.
all operating in parallel within the same environment. And to grasp the mechanics of this, we have to look at how an infant's nervous system actually functions.
Which is very different from ours.
Completely different. Infants are governed almost entirely by immediate sensory input and internal regulation. They do not possess a stable, abstracted, shared reality.
So they don't know they're sharing a room.
No, not at all.
Hmm.
The cognitive architecture required to understand, we were in a room together, or we are sharing an experience that relies on the prefrontal cortex and the default mode network.
And those aren't working yet.
They simply aren't online yet in any meaningful way.
Wow. Which means they aren't actually sharing a room, experientially speaking.
Exactly.
They are essentially trapped inside their own independent nervous system loops.
Yes, that's a great way to put it.
If we look at those two contrasting states happening simultaneously, the physical reality becomes much clearer. Take baby B, the laughing one.
Okay.
The text points out that this baby is physically comfortable, they are fed, their temperature is regulated. Neurologically, they are anchored in a parasympathetic state.
Right. The rest and digest state.
Exactly. Meaning their vagus nerve is actively keeping their heart rate steady, digestion is working smoothly, and because that internal baseline is so secure, the external stimuli like a moving shadow or a funny face or a sudden noise, it just registers as pleasant enrichment.
Yeah, that secure baseline acts as a buffer.
Right.
But in that exact same second, baby A is experiencing a completely different physiological reality.
Even though they are inches away.
Inches away. Baby A might be dealing with a shift in internal temperature, or a drop in blood sugar, or perhaps just a gas bubble in their digestive tract.
Just a simple gas bubble.
Right, but for an infant, interoception, which is the brain's perception of the body's internal state, is basically their entire universe.
So it's not just a minor tummy ache.
No. A gas bubble isn't just a minor localized pain. To a nervous system that hasn't yet learned to contextualize pain, that internal visceral discomfort triggers a massive sympathetic nervous system response.
The fight or flight alarm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It is a full-blown systemic alarm. They are experiencing a profound internal crisis
Wow.
that is completely invisible to anyone looking at them from the outside.
So the external environment, like the playmat, the toys, the room temperature, is essentially irrelevant to baby A in that moment.
Totally irrelevant.
It's like It's like comparing two deep-sea submersibles operating in the same patch of ocean.
I like that.
They are in the exact same water, but the internal cabin pressure, the temperature controls, and the warning alarms inside those two holes are functioning completely independently.
That is a brilliant analogy.
Right. If a pipe bursts inside submersible A, the fact that the water outside is calm doesn't matter at all to the people inside.
Not even a little bit.
But, okay, I have to push back on the isolation of those two environments for a second.
Sure, go for it.
Because the hulls of those submersibles aren't soundproof.
Ah, I see where you're going.
Right. If one baby is screaming at the top of its lungs right next to the other baby, how does that incredibly loud acoustic assault not breach the hull for the laughing baby?
It's a great question.
I mean, how does a siren going off inches from your ear not instantly shatter a calm, parasympathetic state?
What's fascinating here is that their reactions remain completely uncoordinated simply because their regulation systems are completely independent.
Independent regulation, okay.
Yeah. To understand why the crying doesn't shatter the laughing baby's calm state, we have to look at the mechanics of empathy and sound processing.
Okay, lay it on me.
As adults, when acoustic vibrations from a cry hit our eardrums, our brains perform massive, instantaneous cognitive lifting.
We do a lot of processing behind the scenes.
So much processing. We recognize the acoustic pattern as distress. We assign an emotional value to it. We empathize by mapping that distress onto our own experiences.
Right, we feel bad for them.
Exactly. And then we generate a social or moral obligation to react.
Because we're adults.
But infants do not have the neural pathways to perform that sequence.
Because that entire sequence requires a clear boundary between the self and the other.
Yes.
If you don't have a fully formed concept of your own identity, you can't mentally step into someone else's shoes.
You don't even have your own shoes yet.
Exactly.
The boundary is incredibly porous early on. So when one baby hears another cry, the response is dictated entirely by their current internal state.
Not by feeling bad for the other baby.
No, not by a cognitive appraisal of the other baby's suffering at all. Sometimes the acoustic input of crying will overwhelm a baby who is already on the edge of dysregulation, and they will start crying too.
Oh, like when a whole nursery starts crying at once?
Yes. That phenomenon is known as emotional contagion.
Emotional contagion. Got it.
It is a primitive neurological mirroring, not cognitive empathy. But other times, a baby might ignore the sound completely if they are focused on something else. Or, in the specific case of our laughing baby, they might find the stimulus engaging.
Here's where it gets really interesting, you know. We project our adult morality onto that laugh.
We really do.
We watch a baby giggling while their peer is melting down, and we immediately assume they're a tiny sociopath reveling in the chaos.
Like a little supervillain.
Yeah. We assign malice to it, but they are literally just receiving a fun, high-pitched rhythm.
The text highlights this as a critical point of misunderstanding. The laughter is not moral, and it is not social in the way we understand it.
It's not cruelty.
It is fundamentally not cruelty, because cruelty requires the conceptual framework of suffering. Babies do not conceptualize pain as a shared condition across beings.
They just don't have the hardware for it.
Exactly. The cognitive thought that baby is suffering, therefore I should feel concerned, does not exist. Instead, their nervous systems are just running a raw signal processing loop.
Right. And if we break down that raw signal processing loop, it basically functions as a straight line, right? Sound hits the ear, it converts to a physical sensation in the nervous system, and that sensation triggers a reflexive response.
That's it. That's a whole loop.
There is no middle step where the brain pauses to ask, what does this sound mean?
No.
It's just an unexpected acoustic pattern entering the auditory nerve.
And the processing is entirely dependent on how the nervous system interprets the physical intensity of the signal.
Okay, so just the volume and pitch.
Basically. The crying is just noise.
Yeah.
If that raw sensory signal pushes an infant's nervous system past its threshold for stability, the output is crying.
The system is overwhelmed.
Exactly. But if that exact same acoustic data enters a nervous system that is highly regulated and comfortable,
Like our laughing baby.
right, then the signal might register as highly stimulating or novel without crossing the threshold into threat. The result is general arousal without a negative interpretation, which manifests as alertness or laughter. One baby's absolute distress is processed by another baby's auditory system as a highly engaging, neutral, or even positive energetic input.
The distress is literally just raw data to them.
Just data.
But, you know, that mechanism raises a really crucial question about the hardware itself.
What do you mean?
Well, if the sound of the crying is just a raw acoustic signal entering the ear, why does it push one baby past their threshold into an overwhelmed state while keeping another baby in a pleasant, stimulated state?
Wow. Okay.
Assuming both babies are well fed and generally comfortable in that exact moment, why does the identical acoustic data result in two entirely different physiological reactions?
That exact discrepancy forces us to look at the concept of innate individuality in our source material.
Innate individuality.
Yes. The reason the identical signal produces different outputs is because the systems receiving the signal are fundamentally not identical.
Oh, I see.
Even in infancy, long before environment or parenting styles have shaped personality, nervous systems differ on a biological level. Sensitivity thresholds are uniquely calibrated in the hardware from day one.
We hold on to this romantic idea that babies are identical little blank slates.
Oh, entirely.
But the biology shows they arrive with their dials already set to different levels. The sources break this down into biologically varied temperaments.
They do. The literature traditionally classifies these baseline variations into categories like easy, reactive, or slow to warm.
I've heard those terms.
Yeah, and these aren't just personality quirks. They are descriptions of biological baselines.
Okay, break that down for me.
A reactive baby has a nervous system with a lower threshold for action potentials. Their amygdala might be more responsive to novel stimuli,
Meaning what, exactly?
meaning it takes significantly less sensory input to trigger a stress response.
Oh, okay. They get overwhelmed faster.
Yes. On the flip side, an easy baby has a nervous system with a higher threshold.
Oh.
It requires a much larger amount of stimulation to shift them out of a parasympathetic state.
Okay, so think about it like this for a second. The raw signal, the acoustic data of the crying, is the exact same electrical current, right?
Right.
But the babies are completely different appliances.
I love this.
You plug that current into a toaster, and the internal resistance generates heat.
Yep.
You plug the exact same current into a radio, and the internal circuitry generates music. It is a fundamental hardware difference.
Exactly.
You can't get angry at the toaster for not playing a song because the current is simply manifesting according to the physical mechanics of the machine receiving it.
The mechanics dictate the manifestation. That is perfectly said.
Mhm.
The baby with a highly reactive temperament receives the sound of crying, and because their biological threshold for stimulation is inherently low, the acoustic data breaches that threshold immediately.
And the toaster gets hot.
Exactly.
Whoa.
Their nervous system registers an overload, and the output is distress. But the baby with a higher threshold temperament receives the exact same acoustic data, and because their threshold is higher, the input doesn't breach the hull.
It just plays music.
It simply bounces around as novel, energetic input, and the output is laughter.
Wow.
If you place two babies in identical conditions, same temperature, same lighting, same proximity to a loud noise, their baseline regulation guarantees they will frequently produce completely opposite behavioral outputs.
Looking at it purely as a mechanism of thresholds and hardware removes all of the heavy moralistic judgment we usually bring to human behavior.
It completely neutralizes it.
It is just biology doing exactly what it is programmed to do. The input interacts with the threshold and the output is generated.
Removing that judgment allows us to see the philosophical core of the text.
Which is what?
Well, we have laid out the biological mechanics, the independent nervous system loops, the lack of cognitive empathy, the raw signal processing, and the innate temperamental hardware.
All the biology stuff.
Right. But the text argues that this specific scenario on the playmat is actually a clean, unfiltered microcosm of the broader human experience.
Oh, wow. So it takes the mechanics of the nursery and scales them up to the rest of human existence.
Exactly.
The playmat is a perfect example of how reality is not singular at the level of experience.
Yes.
You have two human beings occupying the exact same physical space, existing in the exact same millisecond of time, participating in the exact same event. And yet their internal realities are separated by light years.
One is experiencing a universe defined by profound distress, and the other is experiencing a universe defined by amusement.
From the exact same room.
Or the exact same room.
Mhm.
And the crucial paradigm-shifting point the text makes is that neither of those experiences is wrong.
That is hard for people to accept.
It is. We are deeply conditioned to search for the objective truth of a situation. We want to know what the event actually was.
So we want a definitive answer.
Right. But in this scenario, the crying baby isn't misinterpreting reality, and the laughing baby isn't ignoring reality. They're both experiencing reality exactly as their internal state dictates.
The internal state is the reality. The outside world is just the raw data prompt that the internal state reacts to.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this dynamic is the psychological root of almost all human disconnect.
How so?
Because the architecture of human perception doesn't fundamentally change as we age.
It doesn't.
No, it just gets layered with more complex social conditioning. As people grow into adults, they carry this exact same dynamic into their relationships and workplaces, but they operate under the illusion that everyone else's hardware processes the data the same way theirs does.
Oh, man.
Psychologically, people assume shared meaning where there's only a shared environment.
Shared meaning versus shared environment, that is so profound.
It really is.
So, what does this all mean? If we assume shared meaning where there is only shared environment, are we essentially just adults walking around in our own isolated nervous system loops, constantly frustrated that the people around you aren't experiencing the exact same reality you are?
The underlying mechanics suggest exactly that.
That explains so much.
Right. Every major conflict where you find yourself asking, how could you possibly interpret what I said that way? Or were we even in the same meeting? Stems from this assumption.
Yes, I've had those exact thoughts.
You were in the same room, sharing the same acoustic data and the same visual environment, but you brought entirely different biological hardware to the table.
Different thresholds.
You brought different sensitivity thresholds, different baseline regulations, and different interoceptive states based on how much sleep you had or what your blood sugar levels were.
Going back to the analogy, you plug the same current into a toaster and a radio, and the conflict arises because the toaster is angry, the radio isn't heating up.
Exactly. You can see the playmat dynamic playing out in a corporate boardroom perfectly.
Oh, let's hear this.
Okay, you have two executives looking at the exact same quarterly report. The raw data on the spreadsheet is identical.
Right.
But Executive A has a highly reactive temperament, a low threshold for risk, and perhaps a dysregulated nervous system from a stressful commute.
So they're primed for stress.
Yes. The data hits their hardware, breaches the threshold, and their output is panic and aggression.
Okay, and Executive B?
Executive B has a high threshold temperament, thrives on novel stimulation, and is in a calm parasympathetic state. The exact same data hits their hardware, registers as an exciting challenge, and their output is enthusiastic planning.
The structural sequence is identical to the infants on the playmat.
Yes. First, independent nervous systems create separate physiological regulation states.
Yes.
Second, empathy and cognitive perspective-taking require massive, effortful exertion. They are not our default operational mode.
Right, we have to try to empathize.
Third, our raw sensory processing filters data through our specific, innate, temperamental threshold.
The hardware.
And finally, those thresholds dictate entirely different outputs from the exact same signal.
Resulting in simultaneous panic and enthusiasm in the boardroom.
Just like simultaneous crying and laughing on the playmat without any objective contradiction in the event itself.
It takes something as messy and chaotic as human behavior and frames it as a highly predictable sequence of biological events. Signal, hardware threshold, output.
It demystifies it.
It really does. It forces you to realize that our primary default experience of reality is fundamentally solitary. Empathy isn't something that just happens.
No, it's not magic.
It is an active, strenuous translation process we have to run to understand someone else's hardware.
It requires a massive amount of cognitive resources to continuously build that bridge.
It's exhausting sometimes.
It is. The default state is the isolated loop. We have to actively choose to push past our own sensory processing to recognize that the person sitting next to us is generating an entirely different world from the exact same stimuli.
Man, the next time you find yourself sitting around the table at a tense family gathering, or you're stuck in a chaotic meeting, and you are just absolutely baffled by how someone else is reacting to the situation, think about the biology of the playmat.
It's a great mental trick.
When you catch yourself wondering how someone could possibly be so upset over a minor comment, or how someone could be so oblivious to the tension in the room, remind yourself that you are only sharing an environment.
Just the environment.
You are not sharing a meaning. Their reality is being generated internally right in that fraction of a second, based on their unique thresholds and interoceptive state, just like yours is.
Exactly.
They are running their hardware, and you are running yours. The acoustic data is the same, but the machines are different.
This raises an important question.
Oh.
The source material makes a point of stating that this raw multiplicity of experience exists before alignment is learned.
Before alignment. Okay.
Right. Infants express their internal states without any filter. But as adults, we are required to learn alignment to function in a cooperative society.
We have to play nice.
Yes. So if alignment, this concept of a shared, agreed-upon reality, is a learned behavior, does that mean our shared adult world is largely a functional illusion?
Oh, wow.
Think about the cognitive load of that.
Yeah.
Are we all constantly suppressing our true, raw biological responses, artificially adjusting our output, just to maintain the illusion that we are all experiencing the exact same world as everyone else in the room?
Are we all just turning down the volume on our radios and unplugging our toasters so we don't disturb the illusion of the shared room?
That's the question.
That is definitely something to chew on the next time you find yourself trying to force your reality onto someone else's hardware. We've certainly unpacked the mechanics of the playmat today.
We really did.
Thank you for diving into the biology of perception, the reality of independent nervous systems, and the profound isolation and beauty of the human experience. Keep questioning your hardware, keep wondering about the internal states of the people sharing your environment, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.